What do you build? What do you build? What do you build? Do you enjoy doing?
Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Do not try this at home.
We may get into this, but my ultra-conservative fundamentalist background. Now, granted, I was 21 when I started doing this, but I'm like, I want a pipe.
Yeah,
C.S. Lewis smoked pipes.
exactly.
I'm good.
Yep.
It's okay.
Yep. It works. Yes.
Granted, now, at 16, I probably ought to not be doing that, but
Yeah, maybe or maybe not.
I'm 21, 22.
I want to hear about that background. I didn't know you had that. By the way, just keep the mic nice and close. 2 or 3 fingers. When in doubt, get closer on the mic, please.
Yep.
What is up with the... I didn't know you had a fundamentalist background.
Yes. I wouldn't necessarily call it like fundamentalist. There was a lot of fundamentalism.
Okay.
I grew up in the Assemblies of God denomination.
Okay.
Which actually, I suppose that is fundamentalist.
Okay. I don't know much about that denomination.
It's kind of a distant cousin to the Church of God.
Okay.
It's not as narrow focused as your Mennonite background, as I've heard you talk about, but it's it's pretty narrow.
Okay.
Which, as a teenager, was awesome.
Okay. Are you being sarcastic right now?
No, I'm being serious. I needed those. Since I just experienced this, tell you what else is narrow: train tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you get off the rails, you get off the rails.
Yeah. So that served you well.
So there's a place for it to an extent.
Yeah. Okay. But for those that, so that fundamentalism or experiencing some fundamentalist type tendencies works better for some people than for others. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's the rails they kind of needed to thrive on, and then other people, it just sort of is not a good fit, and it can really kind of like send them off into a bad direction quickly. Mm-hmm. So for you, it was actually helpful.
Yes.
But you seem, which is surprising to me, because you seem like a free spirit, sort of a more creative person.
That is correct.
And those types of people sometimes don't do very well in that type of environment.
Also correct.
So what happened that you seemed to do fairly well in that environment?
I moved to Nashville.
So by doing well in that environment, what you mean is you got away from it.
Yes.
So you weren't doing so good in that environment.
Well, it served me well up until a certain age, when I needed those boundaries. Like I heard someone today, literally on the way in, he said, I grew up in a faith that was handed to me, and he was grateful for that. So was I. But when I took responsibility for my own faith, then faith opened up.
Yeah.
It became mine. It became real. It became internalized instead of this is what you don't do. It became wow, there's a lot of freedom here. This is what I get to do.
Yeah.
Now there's a thin line between that and doing whatever in the hell I want. But it was a far cry from don't ever do this.
Yeah.
Don't ever do this. Don't ever do this. Don't ever smoke a pipe. I'm like, wait a minute, Brother Jack.
Yeah. Well, that speaks to some of the cultural influence that we experience and never think about, you know? Like when you have these rules about not smoking pipes or whatever it may be, I think you look back in history and look at all these great men and probably even women that did, and people that you would that they would quote, you know, but they wouldn't choose their lifestyle, which is fine, by the way. I mean, my Mennonite friends and brothers and sisters and all that that are still in that kind of tradition, I mean, most of them, you know, don't do it, at least openly.
Right.
And, you know, that lifestyle actually works. That's my point. That lifestyle actually really works for some people, but it's not for everybody.
Yep.
So that's up to people to decide for themselves as they become adults and take agency in their own life and make decisions. I think there needs to be a category for those, whether it's Church of God or Assemblies of God or Mennonite or Amish. There needs to be an understanding that maybe this isn't for everybody. It might be for you, but if you raise a child and they choose to leave that might be okay, you know?
I think that's called being part of the body of Christ, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's hands, there's feet, there's
Ah,
arms,
sure.
there's elbows,
Okay.
there's armpits, there's nether regions.
But-
there are pretty faces, so
Yes.
it's all part.
Yeah, but this is something my wife and I were just talking about a couple of months ago. No, less than that, a month ago. We have experienced people in the Amish, in the Mennonite, Baptist, used to be atheists. You name it, like this huge, broad range of people, and you find people that are on the way in all of those sort of camps. And I mean, there are people on the way, like Christ lovers in conservative camps you can think of, but they have a genuine heart change and they're on the way. And you have kind of this resonance with them. But then you have people who are very similar to you, maybe, but aren't on the way. And you just, you have this kind of that's what's beautiful about the gospel is it transcends culture.
Yep.
That's my point. So you can have almost any kind of cultural background or even be in any kind of a different culture. And you can have that connection with someone if they're like living in or living out the kingdom of God.
Yep.
Exactly. One of the things that occurred to me soon before you got here was that probably art, I think. We're going to talk a lot about art. Because I can see that being central to a lot of who you are as a person and what you do. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about that. But first, can you just kind of give the listeners a little bit about who you are and where you're from and what you do?
Yes. I grew up in central Illinois. I was born in Springfield, land of Lincoln. Moved here to the south of the Mason-Dixon line, and I like to joke that I'm from the state that produced both Grant and Lincoln. That sometimes doesn't go over very well down here. But I grew up in the land of Lincoln. Lincoln was to my hometown what Andrew Jackson is here.
Okay.
He was born in Kentucky, raised in Indiana, moved to outside Springfield, Illinois, and from there he ascended his political life. So he's our hometown hero. Mm-hmm. Went to college in Springfield, Missouri, at an Assemblies of God liberal arts university, and from there I met a very dear friend and mentor who helped me get into the music industry here in Nashville. So I moved to Nashville to work on the business side of music.
After college?
After college.
Okay.
Yeah, my goal was to graduate college knowing where I was going to go. So I left college, went home, packed my crap, moved here within 2 weeks, and had a job in the music business and loved that while I was in it. Took some side jobs, worked for an interior decorator for 3 years, which was awesome, like truly awesome. That wasn't sarcastic. It was awesome. My world went from here to here because I did a little bit of everything. I did some like PR and marketing for him, but I also drove the truck and I schlepped furniture and I went to Atlanta like at least 2 or 3 times a month and picked up stuff. And I went to real art galleries and I'm carrying these, centuries old rugs and tapestries and all of this fine fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And it just deeply enriched my life and my aesthetic.
How about the homes that you got into? Was that also kind of expanding or not so much? Or weren't you in the homes?
Oh, I was very much in the homes.
You were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mostly in Belmead, Green Hills.
So pretty
Brentwood
nice
area.
homes.
Oh, very nice.
Okay. Yeah. How were the customers?
As you might suspect that group to be, they treated me very kindly, very wealthy, very resolute. It's like they know what they want. They trusted the designer to deliver, and they trusted his aesthetic. But if it wasn't working, they would say so.
Okay. Yeah.
And he would pivot, or
Sure.
there might be some clash one way or another. It was real symbiotic, but he was one of the top designers in the Southeast, decorators in the Southeast, and I mean his work was amazing. It was 3 of the most formative years of my life, 22 to 25.
Wow, what a great experience!
Yeah, it was awesome. So for Midwestern farm town kid, town I grew up in literally was a mile wide. signpost to signpost, 13 streets, 1 mile. Not even a blinking light.
Uh-huh.
You knew you were in town because speed limit went down to 30. The school I went through, I was in the same building, K through 12.
Okay. Yeah, that's me too.
It was a tall building. It was a north-south building. You go in the middle on the western side. First grade, second grade, third grade, go up a level, fourth, fifth, sixth, back this way, and you basically just did a lap.
No way.
And the cafeteria was in the middle. The gymnasium was in the middle. K through 12, same building. Half my graduated class I was in kindergarten with.
Did you
was
make
awesome.
lifetime friends from that
Yeah.
to this day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I did too, but I don't see them nearly enough. They're all kind of spread out now.
Yeah. I've retained one regularly in my life. He and I literally have memories since we were age 2 playing together. Probably 2 closer to 3, but we confirmed with our parents we were late 2s. And I just consider him a brother from another
Is he
mother.
in town?
No, he's still back home.
Okay. So how do you keep up with him? Not to distract you from your story. but-
Facebook and text.
Oh,
and
yeah?
then occasionally he'll pop in here when I go home, which is very often. But when I go
Okay.
home,
Like, do you text once a week, or what's this look like?
oh no, it's every 3-4 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah,
you're not
we
like
stay connected.
okay. Okay, because I feel like with some of my childhood friends, I do that, but I feel like I don't do good at keeping up with anyone, honestly, on a daily basis unless I
Ditto.
see them. You know.
Ditto.
So that's basically Kobe and my wife. pretty
Family and
much.
coworkers.
Okay, back to the story.
Yep. So this is up to 25. Left the design firm, went to a small independent record label, and
To do what?
I was the marketing department for it was an instrumental concept record label. So what that means is the title is larger than the performer. Classic movie love songs, solo piano, Stan Whitmire. Actually, this company was one of the first companies to have music in Cracker Barrel, like the little, press the button, hear the music, buy
Oh,
the
yeah.
CD, go out the store.
Okay.
I would dare say that Cracker Barrel Records exists because of this company,
Wow.
because there was a proof of concept going on, and it was thematic music. There'd be Smoky Mountain hymns, silver screen classics, which old movies, but performed on solo violin or with orchestra, but by a solo violinist. And then when the sales team got those into Cracker Barrel, they did very well. Brilliant marketing because that's a great placement. And then it has just morphed into what Cracker Barrel is. I think the record company is still around. I haven't checked because I left there, pushing 20 years ago. Great experience, still great friends that I have from that small team.
Yep.
From there, I took what was a side move out from marketing to marketing, from music to book publishing. I went to Thomas Nelson Publishers for 6 of the longest months of my life. 2 weeks in, I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
Really?
Yes.
What year? Like this has been like
This
the
would've
early 2000s or late 90s?
Let's see, I was married in 98. This has been mid 90s.
Mid 90s? Okay.
Yes. This is to say nothing disparaging about the company. Solid company. I was there when Michael Hyatt was the president. I mean, it was a great experience, except I was a free-thinking creative, square peg, working inside a very formalized, structured corporate round hole. Neither of which are wrong. They just don't fit. When I was the sole person of a marketing department, I could almost make my own decisions. So I could figure out a way to do things. When I moved to a larger publicly traded corporate company, there was a way to do things.
Yeah.
There was the way to do things. That said, 2 of my colleagues from Thomas Nelson are still very dear friends of mine. One I'm going to have on my podcast soon.
Oh, nice.
She's got an amazing story. She's an amazing human being. Her business partner has been the single most repeat client for my photography business.
Oh, cool.
Photographed her so many times, so many ways. And I met them both at Thomas Nelson. From there, I got restructured out every, 6 months later, which was an ego hit, but
Okay.
it ended up being a good thing. You know,
Okay.
the bumps are
Why
what
didn't
climb
you
on, right?
leave? Why didn't you leave sooner?
Wanted to plant a little bit, see if I could learn something that I didn't know and
Sure.
grow a little bit. I just never really felt the opportunity, or took the opportunity to go find something else.
Yeah.
So from there, I went to a group of magazine publishers to sell ads. Don't ask me to sell anything. I don't. I'm not a salesperson. I would like to. If you would like to buy something that I sell, awesome.
Right.
But I'm not a. This is what you need.
Sure.
It was more of a service thing. It literally was. I needed a job. I had young marriage, had a wife at the time. I still do have the wife, but at that time it was just a young marriage.
Yeah.
I needed to provide. I needed a job. Fast forward to I think I was there for 3 years or so, and then my wife finishes nursing school, top in her class. We're like, are we really tied to Nashville? I'm like, we love it here, but do we have to stay here? We're like, not necessarily. So she interviewed for a nursing position in Burlington, Vermont,
Why?
because at that time, we'd never been to Vermont.
Okay.
It was complete foreign territory to us.
Okay. Yeah. It's an adventure.
And why not?
Just most people would move from Vermont to Nashville, not from Nashville to Vermont.
Right. But since we honeymooned in Maine,
Okay.
we had a little hint of New England. And the funny thing is because we were like tell everybody we were going to go honeymoon in Maine, they'd be like, "What's in Maine?"
I've heard it's really pretty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
And
was.
it
awesome.
was? It
Yes,
is?
Yes.
Yeah.
We fell in love with New England. So they flew her up there, put her up for 2 nights for a 3-hour interview. When we saw the schedule, I'm like, okay, I'm going because it's only going to cost us car rental, airfare for me. I think they gave her a stipend for food. So we were basically there for 3 days, 2 nights for a 3-hour interview.
Okay.
And while we were there, like one of our dinner nights is we drove from there to Lake Placid. And this is like
Yeah.
this is March.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
it's still the dead of winter. Went into the hockey arena. Amazing electric experience, just chills just being there. And there was some pickup hockey going on. We took a dog sled ride while we were there. We took a 2-horse open sleigh ride. There was like think a hayride. It was like this sleigh with wood walls, hay bales, blankets. I mean, it's probably 10, 20 degrees. 2 horses, frozen solid Lake Placid.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Okay, so a horse is what? A ton each?
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
2 horses, full gallop on a frozen lake.
But there's snow on the lake, right? Or are you on the ice?
We're on the ice.
I mean, but the
With-
horse would slip on if you're on ice. Was it ice and then snow?
I would imagine the horses had like
Yeah, right.
something
like
on their
grippy
shoes so that-
horseshoes
so it
or
was grippy.
something.
tons of horse.
Dude,
pounding
that
on
is
this ice.
cool.
2-horse open sleigh, full gallop.
That sounds fun.
I think he said the ice was like 3 feet thick.
Yeah. Wow.
It was an amazing experience. Like so much that I remember that. It was very vivid. This is coming around. I'm getting somewhere. I'll close the loop because I'm a storyteller. We're flying out of Vermont. Of course, after going to Ben and Jerry's and Stowe. I mean, we just took advantage of this all but 3 hours that we had. And 8 o'clock flight, Northwest Airlines. We're overbooked. We're looking for some volunteers to take the 8:30 flight. I'm like, baby, hold on a minute. Let's just wait. I think the offer was, I don't know, $200 voucher or something. I'm like,
Yep.
hold on, let's wait. 2 or 3 rounds later, and they upped it to round trip airfare anywhere Northwest flies. Sold.
Oh, nice. You
Like,
and your
okay,
wife got it?
Yes. We waited 30 minutes to get on the next flight and scored 2 round trip air
totally
tickets
worth it.
anywhere Northwest.
Yeah.
flew. So we're like, okay, what's the farthest trip we can make with Northwest Airlines? We looked at Alaska. We were like, okay, let's really take advantage of this.
When you say Northwest, you're sure you're not talking about Southwest, right?
I'm positive it was Northwest Airlines,
Okay.
and I'm not even sure they're still around.
Because I don't even feel like I've ever heard of Northwest Airlines. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're still around.
But definitely not Southwest.
I'll relight in a little bit. We ended up going to Montana. This is 2006 by this point. Let me do that math again. Yes, 2006. This is the time when digital photography was just coming onto the scene. And I had a little point and shoot. I mean, there were high-end, digital photography was really just for the pros, but they had started rolling it out into consumer level. It was literally this size, but I didn't, and it was one of those where you would just do this.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to go through Glacier National Park like this. So I bought a digital SLR.
Yeah, just move that around wherever
Okay.
you want to put it.
I didn't want to squeak it.
By the way, it goes back with you.
Okay,
Whatever.
awesome. I bought an entry-level consumer digital SLR. So I can take real photos with a very not real camera, but it got me where I needed to go. We're in God's country. Have you been to Montana, by the way?
No. Been to
gotta
Idaho.
go. Okay, so you have an idea then.
Yeah.
Idaho is basically western Montana.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the south, the block part. But if you're up in the thin part, you're basically in Montana. So Glacier National Park, totally, I'm convinced this is where God's house is.
I believe that.
Or where he would put one.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's where I want to put one. That is for sure. So we were there for 5 days. We drove, 1,900 miles, because at the time, it was just us. So when we go on vacation, we go on vacation.
No kids.
No kids. It was just us and a rental car and my camera. So 1,900 miles later, 2,500 frames later, we get back home. And I start playing with these photos.
Is this your introduction to photography?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's the first kind of time you're getting serious with a digital camera. But prior to that, did you have those old like Kodak things or whatever with the films? Like, were you toying around with cameras much up until this point?
When
or
I was
not?
a teenager, yes.
Okay.
I still have my camera from my teenage years, which for me was the 80s. It's a Pentax K1000 35 millimeter camera, to just total kit lens. I mean, it was probably a Kmart or a JCPenney catalog.
So was photography like always in your blood a little bit?
It
or?
was more of an interest and a hobby.
Okay.
But the thing about film photography, I didn't study it in college. I studied business in college. Took one photography class as an elective in college. Did the whole darkroom thing. I don't know how to do it now though, just because I don't need to, and I didn't do it well then. But with the advent of this digital camera, it recorded everything about the photo that prior to digital, I would need to, my shutter speed was this, my f-stop was this. I'd have to have a pen and paper
Oh, wow. I didn't realize
to
that.
write it all down.
Yeah.
Now it's embedded in the metadata. So I could get home and I could look at an image and go, how could that be? Is it overexposed? Is it underexposed? I don't know. Let me get under the hood. Let me look at the numbers. And it would tell me something. And then I would try it. And so if I set it on the same settings, then if I adjust it this, look what happens when I just switch this one thing. Did that enough times, and I taught myself the craft of photography, digital photography, which is still photography, that I was able to absorb digitally what I didn't grasp in analog. So I'm working on these photos, and my wife looks over at me and she said, I think I like you better when you're working with photos.
Really?
Which is her way of saying, right now you're employed, you have a job, we're doing okay, but I'm not sure you really love what you're doing.
And what are you doing at this point?
At this point, I am selling or trying to convince people to buy ads.
Okay.
for
Yep.
family print magazines. Selling.
Yeah.
So she said, I want you to be super jazzed about your line of work. And it feels like you're super jazzed about photography. Is that accurate? She's like, yeah, I'm kind of like discovering something that I didn't really knew I loved, but the love was always there. So we formulated an exit strategy. I'm like, okay, could I jump from my job and go 100% freelance by date X? And we made that happen. It was probably fall of 2007. So it took about a year. And then I had another dear friend, one of my photography mentors, took me under his wing, taught me everything I know, a fraction of what he knows, but definitely everything that I know. And I built a freelance photography business, which I miss terribly. But I was then hired on to be a corporate photographer by my number one client at the time because we started growing a family. And at that age of digital photography, this is early 2010. So this is 2011, 2012 was like the heyday of wedding and portrait photography, and there's seminars and all this stuff. And maybe it's still going on now. Once I left the industry, I kind of never looked back. And then I went internal with one of my number one clients, and that is a product photography company. I've been shooting shoes ever since.
Was that Journeys?
It is Journeys.
So you went full time with Journeys in 2011,
2012.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I really like that company, that brand.
It's a solid company.
Yeah.
Parent company is Genesco, and it's, and we were profitable last year.
You were profitable?
We were profitable last year.
Genesco or Journeys?
Yes.
Both?
Journeys carried Genesco a lot, but
Really?
I say that because I'm bragging on the leadership of Genesco parent company and Journeys division.
Yeah. Do you know Rob Taylor?
I do.
Yeah, he's a solid guy.
Yep. We were emailing about something yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. It's very rare, like what he does and what I do don't cross a lot.
Right.
But in this instance, it does because we're moving to a new building and he's going to help me build a new studio.
Oh, cool.
He was asking me some technical questions about gear
Where are you moving?
that we needed. The plan is to go into what is the former Bridgestone building on Elm Hill Pike and Briley.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
right
not,
now you're
not the whole building, but some of the floors.
Okay. Is Journeys or Genesco staying in the building by the airport too? Or?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Moving completely out of that building.
That building will become a runway.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know there's a new runway going in. But is Rob still the chief operating officer of Journeys?
Yes. Slightly different title, but
Okay.
But yes. Yes. I don't remember what the actual title is, but
I don't know if I've met someone who works harder than Rob. He's just always on, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I first met him, I think, in 2014. Yeah. Wow, that's so long ago now. My goodness. And
was
every
like
time
7
I
years
talked
ago.
to him on the phone, he was in some city around the world randomly just working, man. Working. And he has got a lot going on personally, and he somehow stays on top of it all, or it seems to me he does. And he's just got a great personality. What I also learned, or what I also like about Journeys and Rob Taylor is, like, as the chief operating officer of a large company, he somehow, like, is still himself, or so it seems to me. Like, he's tatted up, and he seems like he's kind of a free thinker himself, and yet he's thriving at a corporation. You know?
Welcome to Journeys.
Yeah. Well, that's
Like,
I think
seriously,
that
that
is
literally
the
is the
that
welcome to
does seem
Journeys.
like it's the culture of Journeys. That's what partly what I like about it.
Yep.
It seems like it's and Journeys has just done a really good job with their branding, and it just seems like it's really cohesive. You know, like what they're doing, it just seems like it's cohesive with the team and their locations and their marketing and the shoes they carry, like all of it. Just seems like a really tight brand. That's what it seems like to me.
I'm glad it seems that way because that's the way it is.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah. So you've
I
been there.
often told people when I was moving from freelance to a day gig, I was like, look, if I'm going to go corporate, which I'm choosing to, this is the corporation to go with.
Yeah, I could see that. I see
And
being a
that
great fit
has
for you.
been confirmed in spades many times.
Really?
Yes.
But I thought you were still freelance. I thought you still did photography on the side.
I do when I want to.
Okay. So you can.
But I no longer go out fishing for work.
Oh, really?
If it comes to me through referrals, awesome. If it's the right kind of job, then yeah, I'll carve time out to do it.
Okay.
But I'm not dropping my hook in the water.
Gotcha.
And like looking for work.
I see.
That being said, if something comes my way, I'm like, yeah, I resonate with that. I get what you're doing. It aligns with my core values. Yeah, let's do it. But I know I'm no longer just I'll shoot whatever.
I see. So
I can shoot whatever, but that doesn't mean I'm going to shoot whatever.
yeah. And by the way, what did you already say? What is it that you do at Journeys, or has your role shifted through the years? But are you getting to play on your photography, your love of photography, still there?
Yes. The business side of me really gets tapped into because I am the senior manager of the e-com photography studio. So if you go to journeys.com and you're shopping shoes, you're like clicking on like all the shoes that come up, then my team has shot those shoes. I built the system going on 8-9 years ago that we still use today. I basically did what I did for them as freelance. I brought it in-house, and then we've expanded it. So I built the system, the processes, bought the gear, built the team,
Wow.
all of that.
Wow. Congratulations.
And now I'm doing more strategy. What images of the shoe do we show? What sequence are they in? Are we showing just the shoe? Are we shooting knee down? Are we shooting on model? Like all of the what ifs. What about we do this? That's my role now.
When you say you built a system, what does that mean? The team or
like literally the system of had to buy the gear, had to like lay out the studio. This is how many cameras we need. This is how many tables we need. This is how many shooters we're going to need based on our workflow. When they make an image, the question was, do they shoot to card and then download later? Do we shoot it into the network where someone else can then take something with it? That kind of system. I built the machine.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Can we just kind of distract you for a second to ask you what you got going here? Because if we're not about to drink that, then I'm going to pour some bourbon.
Yes. Okay. So
I don't know if you drink this or what.
No,
you said this is a game.
This is drinkable. And I brought sample sizes because we're going to do a little taste test.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
But I want to know which one you like
Okay.
or don't like.
I'm down for that.
Okay.
Can you give me categories? Are they look like they're bourbons?
These are both bourbons.
Both are bourbons, okay?
Both are bourbons. And I'm just going to give you like sample quantities at this point.
Okay. That's Colonel Taylor. Yeah, that's Colonel Taylor. Right?
Man, that's good. It is not Colonel Taylor.
Very good.
I will have to check my phone because I swear I'm going to remember what's what, but I didn't. I took a picture of the actual bottle next to these jars, so I'll be reminded what they are.
That has a very distinct smell that I feel like I really know.
And if you want more of this, you're welcome to check it.
God, I have no idea. That tastes like Colonel Taylor too. I have no idea what I was just drinking.
Turn my phone back on. So, the identity
Both very good,
of
though.
each of these will be revealed specifically here in a moment, but I will tell you that one is Chattanooga Whiskey 91.
I barely believe you on that because I've had Chattanooga whiskey and it wasn't like the favorite bourbon that I've ever had. But both of these are extremely good.
The other one is Evan Williams Black Label.
Oh, wow. I was way off. Huh.
And as soon as this fires up, I'll tell you which one it is. Here's why I did this. Knowing you are a bourbon fan, and I'm a bourbon fan too, I have recently discovered that my go-to end of the day, I just want to have a little sip and just chill. Not the, hey, I'm going to sit around with the guys, drink, have bourbon, smoke cigars, all that stuff. That's not that. That's not my Evan Williams. But this was the Evan Williams, the second one.
Okay. Yeah.
Evan
Williams Black Label.
Yes. The first one was Chattanooga Whiskey 91.
What do you, roughly how much per bottle each do you think?
$20 for a liter and a half.
Wow, that's shocking to me. Can I have a little bit more of that?
Yeah. And this Chattanooga 91 was, I don't know, mid-40s.
Okay. Yeah.
So for me, this is the
they're both very
the
good.
cheap relaxation. Mm-hmm. And then when I want to like treat myself or host some friends, then it's,
You move over.
I move over and up, and I sort them by proof. Now, I will tell you that I've had enough bourbons and whiskeys to know that my palate is a low 90s preference.
Okay.
That's my sweet spot, if you will. Gentleman Jack is 80, just for reference. Tin Cup is 85.
Okay.
These are both, Evan Williams is 90, Chattanooga Whiskey's 91. I've had some like 125s. I'm like, yeah, that was cool, but a little hot for my taste.
Right. Yeah.
So the point of this experiment was to show that, no labels aside, that just a good bourbon is a good bourbon.
I totally agree. 100%. 100%. And I'm not...
now, they can become great bourbons, but a good bourbon is a good bourbon.
I do agree with that. And I am not a connoisseur. I have friends that are. And I enjoy... What I know is I enjoy... generally speaking, whiskey more than wine and bourbon more than whiskey. And that's kind of the extent of my knowledge on the subject.
Yep. That's as far as I
Both these are very good. I would drink that as kind of a daily drinker, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for bringing them, by the way.
Yeah,
very
just
tasty.
a little fun.
Yeah,
experiment.
absolutely.
So.
Okay, so photography.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to go into journeys more, or I do want to go into journeys more because that's what we're talking about. So they sell shoes primarily. But again, they have a very particular brand at Journeys. How would you describe the brand?
It is a teenage lifestyle brand, late teens, early 20s lifestyle brand.
Yes. Okay.
Now, I say brand; it's a brand of stores. You cannot buy a pair of Journeys branded shoes.
Exactly.
We are a reseller of other brands.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
So, do you have the dual role of incorporating the manufacturer's brand along with Journeys, and then you have the demographic, and somehow you have to like meet at the intersection of those three things, and that's what you need to be conveying?
Yes.
Or do you not worry so much about the manufacturer's brand?
Secondarily.
Okay.
Primarily is we present their brands through a Journeys lens.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep.
An example, Sperry. What did you think of?
Sperry?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is, bro.
Sperry topsiders?
I have no idea. I'm not a
Okay.
shoe guy, man.
Okay. So
I mean, I'm wearing
then
these,
let's
I know
go
I
with
like
a brand we
these.
don't carry. What, Nautica?
Okay.
Did a brand come to mind?
Not really.
Sort of.
I mean,
Okay, so they're
you're gonna have to dumb this down,
they're-
man.
they're-
Johnson and Murphy. How about that?
that is for our age.
Yeah.
It's like 35 and up.
Yeah.
A little more established professional. Wearing some J&Ms as we speak. Yes. Some
nice.
knitted brogues. It's a sock top brogue.
I like those.
Super
Wow.
comfortable. Okay, so Sperry and Nautica, they're boat shoes.
That's what I was gonna say,
Yeah,
but
you
I
know
mean,
it's
I
Sperry.
didn't. Yeah.
But okay, so if Sperry sends us some lifestyle imagery, it will likely be on a yacht
Sure.
or beach volleyball or something that is that oriented.
Yep.
We will take those shoes and put it on a person on a skateboard in a city, in an alley with hard space. Just to contrast. Now, it might include sand, but so
Okay.
I'm giving examples to contrast. That's the brand through the Journeys lens.
So Sperry's will allow you to do that. They don't keep you sort of within stricter brand guidelines and say, no, this is how we need you to represent our brand. You can sort of, if you're selling enough of shoes, you can kind of do whatever you want with them.
Yeah, that's where it becomes a little bit of both. It's their brand through our lens because we're selling to our core customer. We're selling their core product to our core customer.
And Journey's core customer is
Kind of like the fringe kid, the teenage to 21, 22, high school misfit. I mean, most teenagers are rebellious. I was, still am to an extent.
Yep.
They've got dyed hair. They're pick your orientation, pick your gender fluidity. It's just like and I don't want to say misfits because that can be pejorative, but they're not necessarily going to star in High School Musical.
Sure.
They're going to be the kids that the athletes necessarily make fun of or whatever. And I'm being like grossly stereotypical, but that's kind of our core.
Okay, so how do you know whether it should be the shoe only, knee down, or full on model shot?
That's where we have a really crack marketing and creative team that sends down those directives.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you get a directive that says shoe only, but you just, it's like, we need knee down on this. Is that something you would speak up about?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
And what might that be? Is it just a intuition, or how would you know if this is the right shot for what you're trying to accomplish?
Part intuition, part based on just market research and competitive analysis that I do. And like my wife literally was shopping for shoes for brands that we don't carry. Last night, she was like, man, I would really like to see a picture of this shoe I'm looking at, like on a foot. I'm like, yeah, we shoot knee down now.
Yeah, okay.
She's like, that's the decision I'm making. She's like, oh, that's right. I remember you telling me about that. She really wanted to see what it looked like on, even if it was someone else's foot, not on a mannequin, because that literally is fake. But she's like, man, I'm looking for, like, can they put some user-generated content in there? Can they plug in some Instagram feed that shows this shoe? Like, I want to see it on a person.
Yes.
And the one she found, they were out of the color. They no longer carried it. It was a photo on their website that was out of stock, didn't have the style or the color. And she's like, man, this is so frustrating. I just want to buy a pair of shoes.
I feel like I would. Does that depend on the demographic in general? Because I feel like I would much rather see shoes on a person as opposed to just seeing a picture of the shoes. Does this just depend on the person? Like, I'm trying to think of an example where it's better just to have a picture of the shoes as opposed to being on someone, and it's like there's not a good reason immediately coming to mind, except that on the checkout process or on your webpage, of course, you're going to have at some point you're going to have pictures of just the shoes, right? I mean, it'd be too much to have a picture on a person every single time.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So do you go to picture on a person for like some of the best sellers or some of the sort of the ones you're trying to push more, or?
Yes to both.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
And when that happens, is it always in studio, or do you go out, kind of out and about?
More in studio, simply from just managing time. But occasionally we'll do some
like green screen,
lifestyle.
And then you add in a
on
background
white.
later?
No, on white. Just on a white sweep.
Okay. And then you can add in a school in the background, a skate park, whatever you want.
If it didn't look fake, then yes. But a lot of times that ends up looking fake unless you're shooting. It's called a shoot and strip, where you shoot in studio, replicate the lighting of the background you're going into to make it look like you were shooting on green screen or in that area. That's a shoot and strip. That can be done. Super time consuming on a per shoe basis. We deal with thousands of shoes a year, so we have more of an assembly line streamlined process. And if you go on location, you could shoot, say, 10, 12 and a half a day. You're dealing with models, and if you're moving from location to location, you're burning a lot of time.
Yeah.
Changing scenery, which would be great for a boutique shoe designer who has their spring line is 12 shoes. Awesome. Go spend the entire day doing that.
Yeah.
But when we're shooting hundreds of shoes a day, thousands of shoes a year, you have to streamline and systematize.
Will you actually shoot like over 100 shoes in a day?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so many. Wow.
Have
And
a
is
team.
that because you're constantly having like different, so like Sperry's, for example, they're constantly releasing new designs, new styles, spring, summer, fall, all of this. Is that why? And you got to take pictures of all the new stuff that's coming down the pike?
Yep. We work
Is that-
months ahead.
Okay.
And, each vendor is going to have not, okay, so here's the whole line they offer. We buy, say, this much or maybe this much. Then the buying team says, here's what our buy is from this brand for this quarter. Then they're going to hit in these months. And you start just dissecting. Okay, we're going to get you these first. Those are hotter. We're going to get you these next. Those are medium. And then if we give you these now, you can wait to shoot them until these are done because they're not as hot as those. And it's just becomes this big shell game.
Yeah. Rob mentioned, I mean, this is no secret, but in the last couple of years, how, things are shifting with people going to malls. And Journeys is in a crud ton of malls. I mean, I forget that. I mean, I don't know if you know the number. I forget, but it was so many at one point. So many, and like in even the countries, like it's ridiculous the stores you guys have.
Yeah.
And but
I basically say, I work for, Journey shoe stores. They're basically in every mall.
no, they really are,
Yeah.
and like around the world, and but malls are taking a hit. So are you picking that up in e-commerce, or what are you guys doing to
We're picking it up in
change
e-commerce.
it? Okay. And is that sort of the model going forward? You're going to stay in the stores that make sense, come out of the stores that don't, and try to pick up the difference with e-commerce, or how are you guys going about that?
That's the plan.
Okay.
And now I'm not on the stores team. I literally am on the e-com team. So that is
okay.
my primary focus.
So is the stores
I want
team?
the stores to win because we all play on the same team. But I really want the e-com team to win.
Okay, gotcha. So does the stores team have its own photography?
No, we're the service bureau for them.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Because the images that my team makes goes to obviously it goes online. You can buy, the customer can buy from those, but it also goes into our point of sale system. So if you're at a store, then they can pull up, if they don't have the size or color you want, they can say, let me check our stock. And then our point of sale system, they can turn the screen around, same photos, same everything. So we serve our customers both in stores and online. I just happen to work primarily for the online department, but we serve the stores.
Yeah, makes sense. So what are the things that you know in your head that need to be true for these pictures to convey properly what you're wanting them to convey about the shoe or about the brand or about the user, appealing to a demographic? I mean, and you're selling, by the way. I mean, I know you're saying, I know what you're saying. Like you would make a very bad used car salesman,
very
so
much
would
so.
I. But also great marketers are the ultimate salespeople, so you're selling, but like what are the things that you kind of have in your head that need to be true for you to feel good about a photo shoot? You know what I mean? Like
I do.
Yeah. What is that? What makes it good? What makes a good photo of shoes?
A good photo of shoes is it's color accurate. For example, if it's a red tone, think red to hot pink, even burgundy to hot pink, somewhere in there. The cameras we have a little bit of trouble with those color tones. So the in-lens image needs to be like when my team shoots it, they know, okay, hold on, leave the shoe on the table, because what the camera delivered is not necessarily that shade of red. Let me adjust to that shade of red before I go on any further. What we don't want to have happen is get an email from a customer saying, hey, I bought this shoe online, but it looks completely different than the one I got in a box.
Yeah.
That doesn't make for a good customer experience.
Makes sense. So rule number 1, do no harm, basically.
Yes.
Like let's not take a picture that misrepresents what they're actually going to get. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That also means that the whole shoe needs to be in focus. So even if they're on mobile and they zoom in, I want them to be able to see from toe to heel that's in focus. That in photography speak is depth of field. So we use strobe lights just blasting it with light, so that can happen. If it's a super shallow depth of field, then the toe or somewhere along the shoe would be in focus, but depending on where your focal point is, before or after that would not be. You want that in a fine art photo because it's mysterious and it's cool. Like
You
that
want the depth of field, a little bit of blurry at one side, but yeah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that is impractical when you're presenting a product. Even if it's an art shot for a full-page ad in W Magazine. Unless you're wanting to be mysterious about what this shoe design is, make sure the whole shoe is in focus.
Okay. It sounds like this is a common thing that you're having to talk about.
We
tell your
we
people.
occasionally will use assets like tabletop assets provided by vendors. And when I wrote out, okay, here's our specifications, it was like a one-pager originally until I got back some images that were like lit with video lights, which is a small trickle of light instead of a blam of light. And I literally got, please be sure that the shoe is in focus from toe to heel. You might need to shoot at this f-stop, at this shutter speed, at this. I like, in order to make this consistent, let me define the bullseye for you.
Yeah. So now you're the guy who's giving people a round hole and
Yes.
saying, you can work with us,
Well,
but here you
exactly.
go.
Yes.
You've come full circle on
I
that.
have come full circle.
I don't know if you realize that or not, but it seemed apparent to me as you were talking about it.
But
But you know it works.
I get it now.
Yeah.
And here I am back in a publicly traded corporation. But I'm not that same person that I was then.
Right.
I had to go through my paces and go, okay, I get it.
Yeah. What else are you making sure that's true about these pictures?
That they represent that what we're showing is through the Journeys lens, and representing the brand. Like when we shoot on location, we have to think about, okay, so this is spring now, so we're soon gonna be shooting fall and winter. Whereas 3-4 months ago, in the fall and winter, we're shooting spring and summer. So now we can't shoot on grass because 6 months from now, that grass will be brown and vice versa. If we're in a parking lot or somewhere, we're looking, are there any brown leaves? If there are, just brush them out of the way because yes, it's fall now, but we're shooting for spring.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Just that kind of stuff. There
Yeah.
are so many nuances.
You're thinking through when this picture is going to be viewed and what that user is going to be experiencing in their life at the time they view that picture and trying to create that 6 months prior.
Yes.
Yeah, which is also very good marketing. It's thinking about, what is the frame of mind. I mean, should I think about that on this podcast, with if I record an intro that's not going to come out first of all, I try to record the intros as close to the release date as possible because sometimes we'll have a conversation that doesn't get released for a few weeks.
Right.
And it's easy to think in terms of like what you have going on or what you want to say, but like good marketing thinks in terms of who's hearing this, what's going on in their life, what do they want to hear, what do they need to hear to
When are they
like
going
move
to
them
hear
to
it?
action, when are they going to hear it, all of those things. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fascinating.
Yeah, so
it's a fascinating.
It's not
art
so
form.
much. There's two different approaches to product photography and commercial photography, than fine art, which is this can be whatever I want it to be.
Yeah,
But when you're shooting for someone, for a company, for a purpose other than this is what I want it to be, it has to be something it needs to be. Does that make sense?
it does make sense. Yeah. Okay, so back to people can look at your work at Gregory Byerline. Is it .com?
It's
What's your
Gregory. My freelance work is at GregoryByerlinePhoto.com.
Gregory Byerline
Photo.com.
BYER line.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Photo.com. And okay, and the website, I mean, it's so my understanding was you're still doing a lot of freelance work, but it sounds like you're doing it as it comes to you.
Yes.
So you're open to it, but you're not pushing it.
Yes.
Your main gig, the thing you're focused on, is your work at Journeys.
Yes.
Has been for some time.
Yes. Since 20. I'm in year 9, so 20.
Oh, okay. So most of the pictures on your website, or from like 2012 or 13 or whatever.
Or in that time window when I choose to.
Gotcha.
Make an
So
image.
okay, gotcha. What has been a more recent photo shoot you've done freelance?
Bridal.
How long ago?
Bridal portrait. Well, okay, a shoot that I would. Of course, that assumes that I have actually kept my website updated. What is the most recent photo on my website? Is that what you're asking?
No. Just how recent have you done a job?
I chose to do a job about a year and a half ago.
Okay. All right.
It was for this former Thomas Nelson colleague. This is one of the other many times I've photographed her. She's the head of a PR firm and asked me to photograph her team. I'm like, yeah, for you, I will.
Yeah.
Took a half day off work, booked a studio, knocked it out, went back to work.
You mentioned heyday of wedding photography. To me, I don't know anything about this industry. It seemed to me that wedding photography and video is a very flooded space in the market.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Very accurate.
Okay. That's what it seemed like.
Yes.
But is there still space for people to rise above if they're really good?
I don't know.
Okay. So you're not in it that much.
I don't watch it anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, when I came in, there were professional photographers here in town who literally were, there are camera brands who will certify you. You are a certified professional photographer, almost like now they would be ambassadors or influencers.
Okay. Like Canon or whoever would be like,
Canon
you're a certified
or
photographer.
Nikon or pick a camera company. I came in with what's called them peers, competitors, because I don't want to say peers because I was not on their level. They were far above where I was. I came in with my self-taught but mentored digital photography approach. I was taught what you can be taught for photography, but I also possessed what you can't be taught.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
No, it does make sense.
Okay. So I have,
And not everyone possesses that.
even
correct?
has that. Yes.
Right, yeah.
They know how to use their camera,
Yeah.
but a photographer does not make.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total
Knowing
sense.
how to use a camera makes you a camera operator.
Yeah, but there's some people out there that haven't like been told that yet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, a professional photographer, and I know some who do this, could take an iPhone and make a professional looking image. Mm-hmm. An amateur can take a pro camera and make an amateur image.
Yeah. Okay.
Is really what I'm getting at.
I could totally see that.
So when I came into the wedding market, I was one who came in. I was one of those self-taught photographers, and I'm sad to say my success pushed out some of the senior, more skilled shooters.
Why are you sad to say that? It's capitalism at its finest, right?
Yes, yes. But I say that because they, like I have moved on to something else. Mm-hmm. So there's this. It's almost like there's a flavor of the decade.
Okay.
Or half a decade. Every 5 years, there's a new crop of somebody. I got into photography in my mid-30s. I did a mid-30s massive career shift. At some point, a 21, 22-year-old bride, now granted, they're aging older now, but at some point, that young girl's not going to want this frosty dude photographing her wedding.
Oh, okay.
They're going to want a young, older 20-something female.
Oh, okay.
So there's that dynamic.
That makes
also.
sense. Yeah.
There are going to be exceptions, and people are going to hear there's going to be some yeah buts, and there always are some yeah buts.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my experience. And these older gentlemen. They happen to be gentlemen with a handful of ladies, but most of them were guys. At some point we all just aged out. So if you have all your eggs in the wedding basket, and again, some people just came to mind and they've been doing it since I left and they're still thriving and they're making it happen. They're the outliers. The common is you're in for 4 or 5 years, your life changes or your business doesn't grow or you didn't grow your business or whatever, and you dip in, you dip out. There's the outliers who are still in it. I didn't stay in it. I ended up hiring a consultant to help me rebrand because I was shooting everything. I was trying to be the photographer. Like if you called, yes, I can do that. And if I didn't know how to do it, I would learn it and then I'd go do it for that person, which is cool from a skill development standpoint. And I built a business that sustained us for a while. I freaking fried.
Oh.
I burnt out. I was trying to be so many different things to so many different people that I didn't know who I was or who my brand identity was. So I hired a consultant to help me go from here to here.
When was that? Post 2012 or pre?
This is pre.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's
All right.
2010.
This is when you're
maybe
in
2011. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm at burnout stage, and if I'm going to stay in this, I want to carve a niche for this is what I do.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the first one thought of if someone said, hey, I want this kind of photo. So I hired a consultant, and he did that. It was amazing. He took me back to business school, and I relearned everything about marketing and focus. Because if you're all things to everybody, you're nothing to anybody. Whatever that saying is. So my website went from GregoryByerline.com, on which you would find a pretty bouquet from a flower wedding that I second shot. You'd see portraits of dogs. You would see some interiors photographs. You'd see nature. You'd see the dewdrops on the flower. You would see the shallow depth of field with this, that, or the other. You would see food photography. You would see where I'm going with this. He took me from that to GregoryByerlinePhoto.com, which was only bridal portraits.
What was it? I wanted to ask you. It seemed to me, based on your Facebook or somewhere, it seemed like when you were doing this, at some point you did arrive at honing in on bridal portraits.
Yes.
And was it bridal portraits even more? So it was bridal portraits, not I'm going to be your wedding photographer?
It came to that, yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
if you wanted someone to be around and take pictures of the wedding, you might have done that too, but your niche was even, more narrow than that, which was bridal portraits.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they getting dressed up in all their stuff? Well, I'm sure not, right? They're taking these bridal portraits on their wedding day?
Nope.
Oh, they are not.
There's the magic.
Oh, okay.
There's the magic.
Gotcha.
Their bridal portrait session is 100% about them.
I see. That makes sense.
They're not sharing the day with anybody.
Okay.
It's their session, all about them.
Usually within 2 weeks of the wedding, or
2 to 4 months before. A lot of it depended on the arrival of their dress.
yeah.
So usually 6 to 8 weeks was the most common.
Okay.
Because by then they have it. They'll take it from the shop. And I even explained it this is an extended try on of your dress. You're going to be in it for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I've had brides shoot a bridal portrait in one dress, change their dress because something wasn't right about it. And they would get married in a different one.
And without that experience, they would have got married in the first dress.
Yes. And they would have been
fascinating.
uncomfortable because it poked them in the ribs all day.
Oh, wow.
Which could make for an irritable bride. So, there's many angles to it. But what I sold them as is, and I'm going to use the term fight, but I want their grandkids to fight over the print that's been hanging in their house for all these years.
That was your sort of internal goal?
Yes.
That's a high bar.
Yes. in order to have that moment 50 years from now, you have got to do the portrait now because you're in your prime of life. You have put your most time and effort into you, so you can fit into the dress that you've dreamed about your entire life. Of all moments in your life when you can be, this is about me, and I want to encapsulate you into a time capsule of, there's a frame. Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And even telling this story, I haven't shot a bridal portrait in probably 4 or 5 years. I am so ready to go do one.
I can tell.
I love this. I love it. Because
Is that why you love it? What do you love so much about it?
Because one of my favorite photographs of my wife is the bridal portrait made by the guy who became my photography mentor.
Oh, that's cool. One of your favorite photos of all time of your wife?
Yes. It's her bridal portrait. It's hanging in my mother-in-law's house. I go there. I linger at that photo.
Dude, I'm almost getting choked up right now listening to you, bro. Seriously.
It's my girl.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And now I should say, I want to give props to my photography mentor. His name is Alan Clark. He's from Hendersonville originally, so I met him here. And the reason I met him is because he shot our wedding. The reason he shot our wedding is because even though I wasn't a photographer, then I didn't want a wedding photographer to shoot my wedding. Alan Clark shoots weddings, but he's not a wedding photographer. He was recommended to me because he's a commercial and he's a musician photographer. He's an artistic photographer. I wanted that eye for my wedding day.
Yeah.
And he made this, it's simple and it's traditional, but it's still one of my favorite photos of my wife. And of all the photos of our wedding day, which, I mean, he did the reception, he did the cake, he did, I call it the Kennedy shot, when you're walking up the aisle after the ceremony's over and everybody's like, yay, all that stuff. Amazing Kennedy shot of Megan and me. But if I narrowed it down to 2 frames, it was what we did between the ceremony and the reception when it was the 2 of us, him and the guy holding the reflector. That's the kind of thing, and I'm like, this is why I hired this guy. So we parted ways, and then our paths crossed again at church one day, struck up conversation, and then fast forward to he becomes one of my mentors.
Wow.
Yeah, so loop back to, he's really responsible for my love of bridal portraits because he completely shot my girl. When I saw the photo, I'm like, that's her. That is exactly her. It wasn't someone other than her. It wasn't someone almost her. It was her. And I remember what that felt like as a groom to see that. And I want to give that to my groom clients. So I have to get to their girls and tell them the story.
Yep.
Kind of see where that
Yep.
goes?
Yep.
Now,
Makes sense.
the downside to that is if this were New York, I would probably still be doing bridal portraits because they're not cheap. They're not inexpensive. And bridal portraits can be known as a Southern thing, but it's usually, okay, take 30 minutes on your wedding day and go do this. I'm like, no, that's not the experience I want for you. I want you, dear one, to be put on a pedestal. I want you to have the supermodel treatment. As a commercial photographer, I'm going to bring my fashion and commercial photography skills to you. Jane every day. Fabulous Jane every day. Let's encapsulate you into this shoot that your grandkids could fight over. Or that you would see when you're flipping through a bridal magazine. Because that's what's in their head. But they're like, well, I'll never have a photo. I'm like, well, why not? Hire the right photographer.
Yeah. Is that true, what you just said? Because I was looking at some of your pictures online of your bridal portraits, and they look like they could all be like models, basically. So is that because you only pick...
On my website, there's a combination of models and brides.
Regular brides?
Yes.
So
Can you tell me who's who?
I probably couldn't.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. So you feel like you had or still have the ability to take an average Jane Doe and make her look like a model with the right setting, the right mojo,
Yes,
the right
if
cameras,
she
the right
wants
lighting. She has to want that
Yes.
and be
I'm not
willing
going
to.
to force it on her, because, and honestly, my wife, she's married to a photographer, does not want her picture made. And that's okay because she's still my girl.
Right. Yeah. Why aren't you doing more? Because I can tell you're still passionate about it.
The reason I'm not doing more is because by focusing from this to this dried up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I made the right decision by hiring this consultant, and I won't begrudge that at all. It was the right thing to do. I was not able to make it work.
Yeah. So what are you looking for when it comes to these bridal portraits? You're looking to represent, it's almost like the shoes. Like you're looking, first of all, you're looking to do no harm with the shoe and actually represent the shoe in its proper color, right?
Yep.
So with a bridal portrait, you're looking to represent their personality, who they are as a person, all of the above, and you're not having these kind of templated poses where you are kind of forcing them to become someone who they're not and just take a good picture, but you're trying to represent who they are as a person.
Yes.
Is that sort of the ultimate?
I'm trying to show them who I see them to be, who I understand them to be, which a lot of times is higher than what they might think of themselves.
Oh, wow. How do you know who they are? How much contact have you had with them up until this point? Do they fill out a questionnaire?
Well, we start with that just because that gives me some little conversational threads to start pulling. But by the time we get to Bridal Portrait Day, we've, and this was long before Zoom was as common as it is today, but we would have had at least one, definitely two, sometimes 3 cups of coffee or phone calls. I want to get to know them. Because what I don't want to do is get on set and have something that triggers them that can shut it down in a heartbeat. So that it was really like a relationship building, because if I'm going to put a genie in a bottle, I need to know what that genie, and by that I mean this time capsule, because really, I mean it's a split second that I'm looking for. I might take several. Actually, I do take several split seconds, but there's a decisive moment. There it is.
You can tell,
and I can tell
later when you're looking through the pictures. You can just tell which is going to be the one.
Yep.
That's fascinating. It's like, man, we talk about like how advanced AI is and stuff like that, but when you take what like the best computers have to offer and put it against like that, we're so further advanced. You know what I mean? Like you can't really teach that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, can you? I mean, you either have it or you don't.
I think there definitely is an element of you either have it to some level or you don't. You can be taught the craft of photography, the how. I don't think you can teach the why. I think you can have a mentor or a professor or a school teacher who can help you identify the why, but I don't think that they can give you your why. You have to own your why.
Yeah. If someone is listening and they're like, well, geez, I'm about to get married and that guy sounds pretty great. I think I might need to have him do my bridal portrait. What's your price range for that?
They're going for $1,200, $1,500 a session.
Okay, and it's a 2 or 3 hour session. Well, that seems reasonable. I would have thought you might have said more than that.
Well, I was heading in that direction before it all dried up. Now I don't necessarily need that to feed my family.
Right.
So I don't want to set the bar so high that nobody jumps over it.
That's right.
But I want to set it high enough that they value it, that they're willing to part with X number of dollars for this experience, for the end result that 50 years from now their grandkids could fight over.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. If I had that level of bridal portrait of Mariana 15 years ago, that would have been the best $1,200 to $1,500 I could have spent.
I would agree.
I could see where it's something that you keep around and pass it down from generation to
agree.
generation. Is there something about brides in particular that you seem to have sort of a resonance with, an understanding of, that you could kind of make art with them? Or is it something about taking pictures of women that you have you can make art better? Or do you also take pictures of guys? Like, is the kind of the niche, I guess, is it brides or is it women? Like, do you feel like you could take a really good portrait of a lady that's not about to get married?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And do you feel like you could take a better portrait of a lady than a dude?
Yes.
Huh. Why?
Because generally speaking, guys, of course, and this is going to be an exception because we're in a very look at me city where there's a lot of guy creatives who are like, yeah, I want to be on the billboard. Generally speaking, guys want to do the looking at instead of being looked at. And the converse is generally true.
So you feel like your average lady is going to have, they're already a step ahead on making true art because of their tendencies, or there's something about that desire to be looked at, that sort of intangible that your average dude doesn't have, and they're already a step behind. Like,
here's how I see the subject matter that we're talking about. Not to objectify said subject or to subject them, but this topic of conversation. Creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, dude. Nah, not quite done.
yeah,
This is cool. This is
you're
good.
totally right, man. By the
This
way,
is
I totally
good.
agree.
But it's not quite done.
Yeah.
Hold on, Adam. Day 6. I got chills, dude. Here comes Eve. I'm done. To me, in the Creator's eye, women are the pinnacle of creation. He stopped.
Yeah. Is it still okay to say in
And
2021?
he rested.
Yeah.
Yes, my entire body of work
Yeah.
is good. And I finished it with Eve.
Yeah. So that's what you're trying to capture.
Exactly.
The pinnacle of creation.
Yes.
Dude, yeah, I see it, man. Yeah. I love that.
And there's a fine line between celebrating that, elevating it, and objectifying it.
There is. And I think that is something that a lot of women who believe in this creator God are working through. That
Tell me more.
embracing their femininity without overextending it. I mean, I'm hearing those conversations. I don't know. Maybe it's just a product of my own environment, but what you said rings true. And if they are the pinnacle of creation, there is something there that shouldn't be brushed aside, shouldn't be stepped over, looked over, but it can also
Put in a corner.
Exactly.
Subjugated.
Yes.
Ignored.
Yeah, most certainly.
Yes.
It can be stamped out and sort of have violence done to the good of creation.
The best
It can
of creation.
it can also be over glorified, right? Or
Yes.
or sensualized, or all of these things.
Idolized.
Idolized, yeah, yeah. So there is that dance. I mean, I always hate to use the word balance, so I don't even see it as balance. I just see it as like getting it right. You know, you can get it wrong on either end, on either side, but you want to get it. Yeah.
Yes.
That is fascinating. I didn't know we would go there with this conversation. I'm glad I asked.
Now, back in the heyday of wedding photography, the next thing that wedding photographers got into, because you got to work on Monday through Friday. Also, you can't work every Saturday. Is there was a rise in boudoir photography. Boudoir is the French word for bedroom. So, unless you were living under a rock 10 years ago, everybody and their dog was getting boudoir photos made. Or, actually, correction, every photographer and everyone else was saying, yeah, I'm a boudoir photographer. Basically, they just were shooting women in their underwear.
Say again what boudoir means.
Boudoir is the French word for bedroom.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I considered it for a while. Like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Everybody else, I see what everybody else was doing, and I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Then as I was working through this pinnacle of creation thing, I was like, you know what? I do want to do this. And here's why. Again, Adam, day 5. We have Eve. Okay. So we know what Eve looks like and how she differs from Adam. This is where, and we have my approach to bridal photography. And then I created a line of intimate portraits that I made up a word. It's called bell'intima. It's a made-up Italian words for intimate beauty. Mm. But I didn't want to make glamour photography, which most people don't know that's the genre of Playboy. Mm. Like swimsuit photography, nudes in Playboy, and all the other skin rags, that is considered glamour photography. Just there's pet photography, there's architecture, there's headshot photography, there's glamour photography. It's a genre. I wanted to do that in a very fine art sort of way that wasn't exploitative, it wasn't degrading, and it wasn't all of the snares that we as men fall into. It wasn't the dark side, the underbelly of this idolizing, this pinnacle of creation. I wanted to elevate her on another platform. Bridal Portraits are a public platform. I wanted to elevate her on a private platform. So I created this line of boudoir photography that I call bell'intima, intimate portraits. And they were black and white, low light, super shallow depth of field, where it's just a little more artistic. Mm. I'm not shooting a shoe or a person. Mm-hmm. I'm shooting parts of a person.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Or I'm shooting, large sections of, but it's blurry. Mm-hmm. There's motion blur. I broke all the photography rules, all of the standard photography rules that I knew at the time. I'm like, screw it. A lot of times I would, like the light in the studio would be a light bulb, like that lamp.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I wouldn't use these.
Okay.
I wouldn't use strobes.
Yep.
And if I did use strobes, they were like, hey, do you like to dance? Oh, I love to dance. Awesome. Would you just move? And in one frame, you've got that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It was exploratory, but it was still, in my mind, God's honest truth, my intentions were pure. In my mind, it was elevating and celebratory. Mm-hmm. But there's a super fine line between celebrating and objectification. Mm-hmm. And it's like razor thin.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. How was that? Was that weird?
My wife didn't totally get on board like I thought she had. I think she did. and then became less comfortable with it as it went on. And I wanted to make sure she knew, like when I was creating this whole concept, I would say like, here's what I'm thinking. Or I would be looking through a photography book and I'd come across Lillian Bassman. If you're not familiar with her, oh my God, look her up. So good. She was a contemporary of Richard Avedon and Irving Penn in New York. But she was the girl, so they got all the credit. So she would work with the models that she would photograph for Vanity Fair. She would like call them into her studio like at night, and they just make art. But when I came across her work, I'm like, oh, that's what I've been envisioning. And I could then go, hey, baby, this is a really good example of what I have in mind. Would you be okay with something like this?
Oh, okay. You'd start to run the projects by your wife?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, she's my girl.
Okay.
We're equals. There's not a subjugation. It's not my way or the highway. It's
Right.
our way. We've been married for 23 years.
Yeah, congratulations.
Almost in May. So pushing 23 years. But when I came across her photography, I was able to give a visual of what I had in my head. Okay, now I kind of get an idea of what you're going for. And I wanted to get her buy-in, genuine buy-in, not just, okay, fine, just do it. So that Lillian Bassman was my inspiration for this line of intimate portraits, which I still love. And some of them are on my website in the intimate section. The ones that gave me permission to show them publicly
sure.
are on there. And if the frame showed their face on my website, they're cropped. Their identities, their identities hidden.
Yep.
But that also gets to the fine art aspect of it, because it could be anybody. It could be Eve. Could have been a photo of Eve. It just happened to be that particular person. Sunday school teacher, stay-at-home mom, like this normal everyday girls. But I was able to encapsulate them in this moment. So they kind of go hand in hand. But it got to where my wife was no longer comfortable with that. Okay, note to self, this could cause a problem. And there's that super thin line. It just became a tightrope that I didn't want to walk anymore.
Okay.
I would feel totally fine showing them to my two daughters because they're presentable to children. And that was always a litmus test. There are no photos I've made that I'm like, you know what, baby, you probably shouldn't look at this one.
Right. Yeah,
I didn't want to go there. Be that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go there for them. I don't want to go there for me either.
Yep.
That's Pandora's box.
Who was asking for these photos? The ladies themselves, or their husbands, or boyfriends, or?
To be honest with you, it started out where I'm asking friends. I'll be like, here's my idea. In order to launch this brand, I need to shoot this brand. Would you, like, if I did this shoot for you and gave you a print, would you come sit for this session? And I did. I photographed, I don't know, 5 or 6 friends that way, colleagues, friends. And then I was able to launch the brand.
I see.
And on that website, which is now down, I have the Pinnacle of Creation story on there.
Oh, really?
I told the story to a writer.
Okay.
And she wrote it, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so good. And it was a female writer. It was a fellow church member. I think we still go to the same church. We haven't been in the same building for over a year, so I don't know if they've moved on or not. Let's say that they're still there.
Yeah.
Female perspective, writer, could like a wordsmith, and a fellow believer. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're the person for this. And she sent me this text. I'm like, you got it, you nailed it. And it was short. It was like 3 paragraphs. I mean, it was so good. So I try to build this brand, and I bet I sold 4 sessions.
Okay.
Again, I was trying to be so defined in what I do that I literally narrowed myself out of a job,
Yep.
basically.
What would you say now to someone who would say, dude, that's parts of creation that only should be committed to memory? What would you say about that? Like, don't be taking pictures like that. That's not an acceptable art form.
I actually would give my wholehearted agreement.
So you feel differently about it now?
I do.
Oh, okay.
About the intimate portrait one.
Right.
Bridal portraits, all day, every day,
Right.
if I could.
But how about on the, I want to say bourgeois, but that's not what you said.
Boudoir.
Bourgeois?
Budoir.
Okay. How about that category? Do you think that's still an acceptable category if the photographer is a lady? Or do you think that whole category of bourgeois photos just isn't something that should be done anymore?
I think if the intentions are right and pure and wholesome, and by that I mean if they're elevating and celebratory and not subjugating and all that stuff, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not the shooter.
Yeah, I could see that.
I've closed the door on that particular chapter.
Yeah, it makes sense.
My girls are getting older. I'm definitely older. I am, by social standards, in the demographic of some of the biggest sources of our social ills. I'm a middle-aged white guy. Put a camera in my hand? No.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Okay. I can see the wisdom in that.
I'm not going there.
Yeah. Really what we're talking about is making art, and I wanted to ask you about that because it seemed to me that art is a through theme or a common theme or a through thread kind of in your life. And you are a creative person, but art seems like you're happiest when you are closest to art. Is that accurate?
I'd say
Whether
that,
it's photos or whatever it
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah.
Music?
For visual art, oh my God, I love music, yes.
You're a big music guy. I knew that.
Yes.
Music's art. So
Yes.
what do
But I would say like philosophy is also art.
I don't disagree with that either. Yeah.
So I like deep thinkers too.
Yeah. So
But if you're talking visual and performing arts, visual, auditory, yeah, how much time you got?
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what it comes down to for you? Visual and auditory art? Is that the razor's edge?
I would actually, yeah, I think so. Visual, primary, audible, secondary, philosophical, tertiary.
Okay. So what would you say is the purpose of art? What's lost if someone stamps art out of their life, or a group of people start to set art aside as dirty, dangerous, ludicrous, whatever the reasons are? What would you say to that?
They have just amputated awe out of their life. I would want to know what makes them, what wows them. If it's not art, what is it that makes them go, OMG?
What if the feeling of OMG or awe to them feels dirty and they feel like that needs to be saved for heaven, and right now we're just trying to get through life?
I would say then that they have bought into a lie of fundamentalism, rooted in fundamentalism.
So you see art as mandatory for living the full human experience.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yes.
And what is it about art that's so compelling? I mean, the one thing that strikes me is, like, good art is more than the sum of its parts. Like, it communicates something that the different pieces of it just can't. Add the different pieces together, and you're not getting the same message as looking at the whole thing, right? It's more than the sum of its parts. It speaks in almost a different language. It's almost like it speaks to our eternality. Like you can show good art to a dog and they might look at it or whatever, but it doesn't
Sniff it. Lick
yeah.
it. You're like, no.
But it doesn't communicate to them.
Right.
But there's not a human on this planet that you can't put them in front of some sort of art and they don't feel something. You know what I mean?
I could name a few, but
But
they're the
still, though,
outliers.
well, it might be because it's so stamped down, it's so subjugated, it's so set aside, it's so viewed as dirty, and there's these years of habitual ways of thinking that that's not something that should be done, or it's not something that should be looked at, or it's not something that should be enjoyed or experienced. But that's still in there. I mean, they're still human, so there's still a resonance with art of some kind. I mean, the one thing that strikes me is that on some of your pictures, you had a picture of like. One of my favorite pictures I saw on your website was of a mountain with more mountains in the back and kind of a lake in the front. And you could just like look at that picture. Like
I wish the listeners could see the smile on my face right now. Yeah, continue.
Because you know what I'm like. It's so meaningful and powerful, and all it is it's capturing God's art. That's all that was.
Right.
Like. And it probably wasn't even truly fully captured, but it was captured pretty dang well. I'll say that.
Thank you.
And so there's something about that, the majesty, the beauty. It's got to have something to do with that thing in humans that we have that animals do not have. And one of those things is this connection to the eternal. I mean, you could be an atheist and you still can't really deny some of these differences between humans and animals. So I think those are a few things that come to my mind with like how art can speak to you. But what do you say? Like how would you define how art can say so much?
Because art is a creative process and we are created creatures that have been stamped with the thumbprint of the Creator. So there is a divine connection between enjoying, understanding, consuming, internalizing, fully living with, exploring, discovering art that is a vertical pull as much as gravity is a downward pull. I think we're drawn to art because of that divine connection.
So you think it is, you can't separate good art's impact from a divine connection.
I can't.
The artist may be totally atheist and may not, believe in it. But if it's good art, whether they agree with it or not, or believe in it or not, it's connected to the divine connection.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, the one art form we didn't talk about is food, and I think this only happened one time, but one time I put a certain food in my mouth at a certain restaurant, and it brought me to tears. And I'm not an easy crier. I mean, I've gotten a lot better, on that front, but it was food, man. But there was something about the whole experience, the way it tasted, the texture, the everything. Like, it was just so satisfying. Like, in some ways, it had to be a foretaste of like the new heavens and the new earth. I don't know how else to really describe it.
Yep.
Because it wasn't just the taste that would make you cry. It had to be more than
something more than
yeah.
that. So that mountain shot, you said.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I know exactly which one.
Do you?
It's Grinnell Point. It is on the east side of Glacier National Park. Remember I told you we went to Montana?
Yeah.
Second day we're in the park. As in, like, we drove into Grand Rapids. Great Falls, arrived, say, 4 or 5 o'clock. So this is in June. So
Of like years ago?
yeah.
You're new at the photography at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Getting back to I learned what I didn't know, but what was already there was already there. So after our first night in Glacier National Park, we're like, we're going to go explore this park. But remember, I took a camera, which to me was a real camera. I'm like, hey, baby, I'm just going to go down by this lake shore. I'll be back in a little bit. She was probably hanging out on the front porch of the lodge, just chilling. I'm like, ooh, that's a really cool. I like how hold on. And I got down at the water's edge, and I took, I promise you, it's that frame. When I saw that on the back of the camera, I'm like, I can do this. I still have what I think I've lost. I just don't know how this camera works. The camera was on automatic. Now, I've digitally processed it, and I've enhanced it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I put the camera in that spot. Mm-hmm. And when I saw it this is what I love about digital, because it was instant feedback.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I have what I thought I've lost. Mm-hmm. Now I need to learn how to use this camera, which is to say, I need to learn how to use this hammer or this table saw or this spatula or whatever. It's just a tool. Mm-hmm. That frame was when I got my photography mojo back.
Ah, wow. That's very cool.
I promise you.
Wow.
And that's the one you called out off my website.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it in color, and I really love it in black and white.
I think I saw it in black and white.
It probably was.
So that even speaks to sort of the intangible or the unspoken or sort of the energy behind that picture too. Because it's hard to take that out, I feel like.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can't, I don't know. This is the thing about art is you can't, there's an energy to it.
Yep.
And there's obviously, you telling that story, there was obviously an energy behind that picture.
And it takes me back to that moment every time I see it. Or, I saw it in my mind's eye when you were talking about it, and I had chills. Mm-hmm. There was a divine moment for me that happened when I pressed the shutter where I had the camera at that time. Another divine moment, coming back to the food that you were talking about, that night, same night, Glacier National Park, East Lodge, I think it was the Lake Mary Lodge on the east side. Go to the lodge, have dinner, looking at the menu, recipe, looking at the menu, and I see this thing for huckleberry pie. I'm like, what's a huckleberry? That's odd. And asked the server. She said, well, it's a wildly grown berry. It's not commercially grown. Like the people who harvest it literally will hike up into the mountains. It's what bears eat.
Wow.
It's bear food. I ordered a slice of huckleberry pie, which literally was thin crust on the bottom, about 1.25 inches of huckleberry, thin crust on. The most basic pie ever. It wasn't like 2 inches of meringue, whipped cream. It was a slice of pie. I scooped off the point of that pie. I put it in my mouth and instantly knew how people got addicted to crack.
Ah.
I had one of those divine food moments with the tip of huckleberry pie.
Yeah.
And it was magical. If I went to the lodge, I could take you to the table we were sitting at. It was that impactful.
Because of that memory of the huckleberry pie?
Yes.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah. Do you think then that art is the creator sprinkling the season on life? Like I think, we don't, since we're being honest here, like I think that way about sex. Like we wouldn't, I don't know we'd have to have it in the full experience that we do have. Like there's other ways to procreate, right? There's other, but it's almost like, sex in its proper form, per the design of the creator. It's like a really worthwhile seasoning on life. And I understand it's not available to everyone at every time, like per the design of the creator.
Right.
But life can be hard, dude. Life can straight up suck sometimes.
Often.
That's just,
Yes.
it is. But then you have this beautiful thing to enjoy that's like this seasoning across like life. I've been married almost 15 years.
Congratulations.
And hopefully that goes for another 15 or way more years. But like I kind of feel like, if I were to die now or be married for another 15 years and die then, like I would have to say, man, one of the things that I'm really grateful for, the creator, is having to enjoy throughout the period of good times and bad times.
Accurate.
is art the same way? Is it kind of this blessing from God, this seasoning on life, or is it a little bit different and it's sort of like our breath that we need to breathe? Is it like a requirement for life? Like we wouldn't be able to get through life without art.
Yes, and I would take that a step further and say we wouldn't get through life without sex.
What about someone who is single for their life?
That is a mystery to me. I literally would love to have a conversation with someone who has chosen, well, even if they haven't chosen, with someone who is celibate, because I don't get that. I genuinely don't understand it.
No, but if, God forbid your situation changed, there is a design for sex, and so it's not available to everyone at all times. So there needs to be a category for getting through life without sex.
Yes.
Now, you're saying you're having a hard time seeing your way through life without it, and I agree.
Yes.
But I would think that needs to be in a little bit different category than art. By art, I just mean looking at the mountains as you drive past them, or flying an airplane and looking out the window and seeing what you see, or music, like all of these other things. Like, it seems like it needs to be in a different category. Would you disagree?
No, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Okay.
I think it would supersede all those other categories because
Sex?
yes, it would.
Oh,
I would say that
agree.
is
Yeah,
higher
sure. No, I agree.
than all the other things.
Oh, I totally agree.
Animals have sex to procreate. Humans have sex to procreate. Humans also have sex to recreate.
Yeah.
Let's break down recreate. To recreate. Now, we've got procreation is, hey, mommy and daddy, where did the babies come from? We'll tell you later. That's an act of creation. But I think when you have that recreation, and it's two-sided recreation, it's not one person having a really great time and the other person like, oh my God, get me out of here. That's not recreation. That's abuse.
Yep.
But when there's that intimate interaction and it's recreation, simply I almost gave you something to edit.
We don't edit, so you'd be stuck with it, bro.
My kids will hear this sometime. Yeah. When we're recreating, there's a divine moment there.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And that's by design, and it's beautiful. And I think
And it's good.
And it is good. And that, I think, is what so much of society is missing. And look, we all make mistakes, but that's the violence that gets done by misuse of sex, whether it's outside of marriage and you're just sleeping around, whether it's a pornography addiction, whatever it may be. There's tons of misuses of sex. I mean, you have a podcast. You produce a podcast for End Slavery Tennessee, right?
That's right.
So massive misuse of it.
Massive.
And that's what I see as like the violence that's being done, because you're doing violence to like one of the best things you can experience in the proper form per the designer's creator. But you can damage that experience. Not to say you can't have healing and restoration and a full enjoyment of that experience going forward, because thankfully, nothing's beyond redemption, right? I mean, Thank God.
Not yet.
Yeah, but
There's still time.
yeah, but that's, I think you're speaking to the violence that can be done to such a beautiful thing when you misuse it.
Yes.
Because it is such a good thing. It is such a good gift.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say on an earthly human level, aside from the soul redemption of salvation, I would say that's like, if that's gift number one, then what we're talking about, gift number two.
I agree.
Yeah.
I wonder how this is being perceived from like someone who like I just had Peter Valk on, who is a believer. And dude's theologically robust, and he's legit. He's also openly gay, but he believes that that would be inappropriate to act on that because sex is for marriage and marriage is for a man and a woman. So he's choosing to go through life as celibate. I'm just kind of curious, like how what we're saying, it's true, But I wonder how like that is heard from someone who has chosen to go through life celibate. You know what I mean?
I would love to know that perspective also.
Does this cause like an unrest in them? We're like, oh man, they're talking about something that I don't experience and not planning to experience. And it sort of causes like an unrest, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Or is it like
it's a very empathic
or
question.
could it be like, I don't know, is it like if someone were to visit Italy and they're like, dude, this is so awesome, and I hear that and I'm like, that's fine, but I'd rather go to Japan. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how that is perceived.
I wouldn't know where to categorize that either. Although there are, you brought up Italy, and I've been there. It's a pretty magical place.
Yeah.
I've never been to Japan, and I'm sure it's a magical place in its own right. I'm not necessarily.
How old are you?
I am 50.
Okay. Does sex peak in your 30s?
No.
Does it peak in your 40s?
I don't think so.
I mean, since I got you here and got you talking, I'm just curious. I'm 36 and it hasn't peaked yet. So
good for you.
Yeah. Back to. Well, let me ask you about music.
Okay.
I don't. No, I know. There's nothing that moves me. I mean, sex aside, there's nothing that moves me like music does. Not food, although I love really good food. Not art. I just don't have enough experience there with like viewing like paintings or like that type of art. I will say this though, being in Colorado or someplace where like there's the magic, like that picture you took, that was in Montana, right? That was not in Nashville, Tennessee. You know what I mean? Like being in a place like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty compelling to me. Like a lot of soul work gets done very quickly for me when I'm in nature like that. So like nature is way, way, way up there for me with enjoying like art, I guess I would think of it. But music probably it's got to be probably number one. I mean, music it can take you from like kind of like Mindspace A or Mindspace say C to Mindspace A plus pretty quickly. What is it? Do you experience that too? How do you experience music? What is it that's so powerful and compelling about music? I mean, it's just notes and it's just timing and it's just words all put together in just the right way. And when you put it together in just the right way, you can have a song that literally like survives decades and moves people decades later. Mm-hmm. There's something magical about that. That's hard to like. It's hard to duplicate with other things. There's something special about it. What is so special about music?
Let's talk instrumental music because that puts words and storytelling out of it.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so like for example, you had just said the song American Pie. Bye Bye Miss American Pie.
Yeah.
People resonate that because it's a genius song, tells a story. Pretty much same dynamic. What changes is the story from verse to verse. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to dwell on words because that's another layer of songwriting. Let's talk about this from the music side, the composer side, the composition side, the instrumental side. I think a difference between music as an art form and visual arts, whether it's photography or painting or sculpting, whatever, is you have the element of dynamics. So an instrumental music can be Ride of the Valkyries, 21 Space Odyssey, or it can be a ballad. Is it a piano ballad? Is it a solo mandolin ballad? Is it a banjo ballad? Because then you're getting into completely different feels. But there's dynamics. Like take the instrument piano, for example. We call it a piano. Its official name is a pianoforte. It's called a pianoforte.
I forgot that.
Piano
My piano teacher told me that when I was like 10.
is a dynamic. Piano is soft. Forte is loud.
Yeah.
A piano forte can do both. Sometimes at the same time. So you've got that dynamic which tugs on your emotional strings. If it's 9:30 at night, you've had a rough week, and you're sipping a bourbon out of a tulip glass, and you're smoking a cigar, what are you going to put on? Ride of the Valkyries? Probably not, unless you're planning on storming the castle. You're going to put on something that's chill, relaxing. A Bach cello concerto, something that's because it has dynamics. If you're doing, I'm a trail runner, but if you're a CrossFitter or whatever, and you're like, I've got to get this workout done, I'm going to surge this hill, you're probably not going to listen to the Brandenburg concertos. You're going to listen to a Ride of the Valkyries or a John Williams Star Wars theme or the Superman theme or whatever. That's what music brings, is an intangible level of dynamics. Sorry, do it again. Because our lives are ebbing and flowing. Our lives are dynamic. Music can align to that, and music will allow us to align to it.
Yeah.
So there's a spiritual and a divine connection as well. Think of King David. I mean, he wrote laments, he wrote praises, he wrote dances. I mean, he was a pretty emotional dude.
Yeah, very honest too.
Yeah.
Yeah, music
That's my take on
can
music.
allow us to align to it. That is true. That's the power of music too.
If we allow ourselves to do it, yeah.
If we allow ourselves to do it, yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, the whole Baby Einstein line wouldn't have existed. You familiar with that line of music? It was a series of CDs back in the day called Baby Einstein, and they were down-tempo, really chill, calm classical tunes that new parents were supposed to play in their nursery with their new kids because it would calm their children, help them sleep, like a lullaby.
Yeah.
A lullaby is designed to force us to align to it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Is
oh,
really
okay,
what I'm
sure.
getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
But a big Olympic theme is also designed to align us to it because it wants to lift our spirits to the spirit of competition, good sportsmanship, ta-da!
Yeah.
So we're also, the up-tempo wants us to align to it when the time is right.
Yeah. One of the cool things about music too is it does transcend beyond the human race. So we have a pet pig, and the first night we got this pet pig. It's a new house. It's just small. And we'd heard that pigs like music, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
So the whole family is going to sleep in the boys' room, and everyone's excited. The whole family's in there. I brought in the Sonos, and the pig's, he's walking around the room, and he's getting accustomed to the family, and this is a new home. It's his first night, and there's the blankets in the corner, but he doesn't, he walks over there, but he's just kind of around. Plug in the Sonos, Snow Patrol, immediately stopped. Just stopped.
That's hysterical.
The pig.
Wow.
A 2-month-old pig just stopped immediately. Music came on, stopped. And, he was right there. So he stops, kind of takes like 2 or 3 steps, lays down. And we just pet the pig and listen to Snow Patrol for like 45 minutes.
What a great moment.
So what is music's effect on dogs? I don't know. I'm sure cats don't give a crap. But
Much about anything than themselves.
But you could have put a painting in front of that pig. You could have shown, Diesel your picture. It wouldn't have had an effect, but music had an effect on him. So it does, I think, transcend something about music that even can transcend the human race.
Well, it can be a physical experience because it's literally vibrations. It's sound waves.
Yes.
So there might have been a tactile thing that maybe the pig heard. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's funny.
A couple months ago, we went through a really crappy season like a year ago, and it kind of just set me on my butt for a little while. And a couple months ago, I'd never listened to much opera, but I was listening to some opera like every night.
Yep.
And I even made the comment to Mariana, like, maybe opera can help me kind of find my path onward. Like, it felt like there was something about opera that is like uplifting and forward moving. I don't know. It just felt like it was really serving a purpose there for like some period of time a few months ago. And it was just like helping me on to what's next.
That's very cool.
Music.
Yeah. I did an opera phase. I call it a phase because I try to focus, like I dedicate a year. I haven't done it so much for the last 2 or 3 years because I'm consuming so many podcasts these days. But prior to my podcast habit, addiction, I would dedicate, like come December, when you start lining up your goals for the year, I'd be like, this is going to be my year to really dive into the opera world.
Ooh, I like that.
Or
Yeah.
I want to spend a year exploring just the classical world. I found myself to be classical music illiterate.
Me too.
Then it was a small step into the opera world. Fascinating world, by the way. Then from there, I went several other places. But there's something about opera that I don't fully understand.
Same. But some of those songs,
like
man.
it.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
something about it. I dig it.
But I think art can be made in conversation too. If you think about what
Yes.
we're doing right now, I didn't know you, and we just sat down and started talking to each other.
Yep.
But we weren't looking on our phone.
Thank
We
God.
weren't distracted. We didn't have a TV playing in the background, and we were talking about a subject that we're both interested in, genuinely.
Yeah.
Genuinely, not let's try to talk about
Right.
photography and art for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Genuinely interested in it. And that, I think you can make some magic in conversation too.
I agree.
And that's a gift too from the creator. So
Because there's that human connection.
yeah,
In
that's
our
what it
case,
is.
it's-
Maybe that's what it
It's
is.
face to face, but in a performer's case, it's from the stage to the audience, and the audience to the stage, or over your MP3 or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's that connection.
Yeah.
And I think again, we are hardwired for a connection horizontally, but I'm also a firm believer that we're vertical connection.
Agreed. Let me ask you this, because I'm curious about it. Post Malone has said straight up that you wouldn't have his music without Bud Light and drugs. Now, I'm sure you'd probably have some of his music. You might have most of his music, but you wouldn't have it all, and it wouldn't. And by the way, I'm not advocating that people go listen to Post Malone. He has a lot of foul language in a lot of his songs, but what are your thoughts on that? Is it okay? Is it okay to like put yourself in a frame of mind to make really exceptional art? And if putting yourself in that frame of mind requires the use of some substances, like, is that sort of what's the term? Like a casualty of your line of work. There's a term for
Unintended
that.
consequences?
Yeah, is it like an unintended consequence or like an occupational hazard?
Occupational hazard, yeah.
Because I think we probably
Collateral damage.
Yeah, like I mean, look, a lot of people wouldn't listen to this stuff, but there's a lot of music that I listen to that probably involves some occupational hazards to get that music. Does that make listening to that music wrong? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, enter the discussion of the tortured artist. Well, I'm only familiar visually with Post Malone. Like
Okay.
if you showed me a picture, I'm like, hey, there's Post Malone.
Tats all over his face,
If you were playing
body.
music, I'm like,
You wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know who he was.
Yeah. Listen to Circles.
Okay.
Listen to Circles by Post Malone. It's clean. Everyone can listen to Circles.
I don't know a thing about him other than if I saw his photo, I know who he is. I know his name, know his face. I've just shared with you everything I know about Post Malone.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have his music without Bud Light and drugs. I'm going to just go out on a limb. I might revise that to wouldn't have his music as we know it without Bud Light and drugs. Wouldn't have this music that he's creating without Bud Light and drugs. But without Bud Light and drugs, I bet he would create something else. I bet he would still create music. It just wouldn't necessarily be
Been that exact music.
this music created with Bud Light and drugs.
Yeah, that's an optimistic viewpoint. I don't know that I disagree, but yeah, that's just something we'll not know, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the podcast world, you also wouldn't have Joe Rogan without psychedelics.
True.
So, but there is still a category for abuse of substances.
Yes, I was about to go enter Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse,
Yeah.
Janis Joplin, Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix.
Yeah.
All of these amazingly talented people that died way too young, and a lot of them at age 28.
Yeah, which is weird, by the way.
Yeah, that's super weird.
Yep.
What more could they have contributed to society without what made them that we knew them as?
Yeah. You're right. And also, I said Joe Rogan without psychedelics. He's not into a bunch of drugs, by the way. So, like, there is, like, he's not doing what I would consider hard drugs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, if he was doing that, we probably wouldn't even have Joe Rogan anymore.
Well,
You
which
know
is
what I mean?
where I was getting to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
You know,
good. I'm glad you brought that in.
And at some point, at what point is there diminishing returns?
Exactly.
I used to manage a jazz trio. It was a great moment in my life. And the bassist, one of my favorite stories he would tell is he would talk about this legendary bassist that I forget what the name is, but in the jazz world, he was a known entity. And someone asked this legendary bassist, and he's like, you know, you seemed a little lit tonight. How do you play so well drunk? And he was like, I practice drunk.
Well, yeah, because practice doesn't make perfect, actually.
Right, yeah.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So but at some point is being drunk part of his music making, or is it a genuine addiction to alcohol that
Right.
causes him to be in this perpetual downward spiral of alcoholism?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know who it is. He could have just been a really old dude. But would that bassist still be alive if he's not?
Yeah.
Had he not practiced and performed drunk?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question.
And we're speculating at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and we can't talk a little bit about drugs without just stating the obvious, which is the three most dangerous and commonly accepted drugs for whatever reason in this culture is sugar, tobacco, and alcohol.
And caffeine.
Yeah, but is caffeine really that dangerous?
Dangerous? Probably not.
Yeah, because I think alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs out there.
Yep. And sugar.
And sugar.
Yep.
Kobe, is it really 6 o'clock? Oh, man. His wife is driving down and my wife's driving up. We're meeting for dinner.
Oh, nice.
That's the right time? Dinner's at 6:30. Okay. Well, that went quick.
Yeah, it is 5:50.
We didn't even talk about most of the stuff I brought you on to talk about. You want to do this again sometime?
I would love it. I love a good conversation. I have been jonesing for a face-to-face conversation like this.
Yeah.
And the interesting timing here. So I have this tonight, which is amazing. Tomorrow, I have my first lunch at a restaurant with a buddy of mine I haven't seen for a while. On Sunday, I get to meet the engineer of one of my podcasts who lives in Atlanta. We've only met by computers. She's in town. We're actually going to have a cup of coffee face to face.
Yes.
In a coffee shop, that third space that we love. I mean, I'm amateur barista. I mean, I'm the coffee maker at my house.
Okay.
But there's something about having someone else do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to that. But also just to go to a coffee shop and then sit and have a conversation with someone at said coffee shop. So Friday, Saturday,
Good for you, man.
This is I'm coming out. We're coming out of quarantine this weekend.
Yeah, there's something about face-to-face human interaction that you can't duplicate.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to
or
do.
whatever.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
often
agree.
done over bringing food in. I'll have a good meal, a long, drawn-out meal with a long, drawn-out conversation.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
Love
Let's make sure we plug everything you have going on. 'Cause you have a lot going on, by the
do.
way. So you're full-time at Journeys.
Yep.
You would do some of these bridal portraits if called upon.
Yep.
But you're involved with like multiple podcasts. Which ones are you involved with? Let's make sure we plug what you want to plug here.
I have 3. My first one is called Collected Clan, collectedclan.com. And these are, actually, this show is very similar to mine. The difference is I have history with everybody that I've been on. That I have on my show.
Oh, that's cool.
They're my people.
Yeah.
They're part of the clan I have collected.
Oh, I see.
They're
Sure.
my souvenirs of life.
Yeah.
And I'm telling their stories. I'm the facilitator. I want to tell their stories again. Elevating and celebrating.
Are they
them.
people with exceptional stories, or you're telling their story because they're exceptional to you? You know what I mean? Like they're near to you, and that's why they're telling their story.
Yes.
I mean, everyone has an
but they
exceptional
also
story.
have they have interesting stories.
Okay.
That people will benefit from hearing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just normal, everyday, Jane and Joe.
Yeah.
But they're ordinary, but they have something extraordinary about them, and I want to celebrate them.
Love that.
So
Collected Clan.
Collectedclan.com. Yes.
Okay.
Available everywhere podcasts are. I have another one that is currently on hold. It is for and from like the smallest audience ever. My subdivision.
Ah, very nice.
Literally.
Yeah.
The subdivision is called Woodmont. The show is called Woodmont Neighbors. Everything, host, guests, cover art, music comes from our little hamlet.
Nice.
If it's not from our footprint, it doesn't get in.
Okay.
But it's on hold. I'm looking for a sponsor. Hello, neighbor, if you're listening to this, we can fire it up. I'll promote your business. And the other one, which I actually feel is the most important, is called Someone Like Me. And it is the official podcast for End Slavery Tennessee, which is the Middle Tennessee organization that works with survivors of human sex and labor trafficking. Mm-hmm. Mostly sex trafficking, but they work with a lot of labor trafficking also.
I didn't know they worked with labor trafficking.
Yep.
Okay, so those are the 3 podcasts.
Yes.
And then if someone wants to keep you in mind for Bridal Portrait, is there a website they could go to for that?
GregoryByerlinePhoto.com, or just email me at my first name, last name at Gmail, GregoryByerline@gmail.com.
Okay.
That one gets to me. Yeah, that'd be the easiest way. But if you want to see the work, go to the website. If you want to message me.
Okay.
I'm the only one on the planet with my name. So if you want to reach me, I'm on Facebook under, hey, you guessed it, Gregory Byerline. I'm on LinkedIn under Gregory Byerline. Instagram,
Do you think you're the only
just
Gregory Byerline on the planet?
that I've come across in my searching. Yes.
Wow. That would be...
with our spelling.
Okay.
There may be another one with an alternate spelling, the same phonetics.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm easy to find. I can't hide, which is both a good thing and a bad
Yeah.
thing.
That's a good
But
thing.
I can be found.
What do you want to leave with our listeners as it relates to art, photography? I mean, just everything we're talking about. I feel like a lot of what we're talking about actually comes back to art and living like the human experience. What do you want to leave with our listeners?
Just be you. Be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Don't live a life that tells a story that's not you. Don't put on facades. And I get this from when I was photographing pageant headshots. There's a level of expectation of take me to a level of a veneer where I'm not who I am because I have to compete with other people. I was at an event and I'm looking at the directory and I'm seeing these photos. I'm like, where is this girl? Oh, that's her. She doesn't look a thing in real life like she does in this photo. It wasn't real. So be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. You can become a better version of yourself if you want to not be what you currently are. Strive for that instead of striving to be the next whatever. Try to be the best version of you.
Yep.
I'm going to go with that. That's how I sign off every Collected Clan episode. Is just now go be you.
Oh yeah. Gregory Byerline.
This was
Thanks
great.
for being on the podcast, brother.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it.
I don't know.